Hello, hello, and welcome to the Where Does It Come From podcast. So glad that you've all come back. Today, my special guest is the author Jen Gale. Now, Jen sent me an amazing bio the other day telling me all about herself, and I will read some of it to you. It's basically saying that she runs the Knackered Mums Club because she's a knackered mum, and she's also an author. But actually, rather than me telling you about it, I think I'll let you tell her about it yourself. Over to you, Jen.
Hello. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me. What do you want to know?
Well, tell us about your books and your campaigning and all the amazing things you do.
I always feel a bit of an idiot when people say that. My journey, if you like, into sustainability started, we spent a year buying nothing new as a family, which was 2012-13, we did that. And it's, with a big cliche klaxon, totally changed my life. It's sort of really made me join the dots between kind of what we were buying and its impact and what we were throwing away and all those kinds of things and stuff that I had just, I think, been sort of looking away from before. I just sort of was vaguely aware of it, but didn't really see that I could do anything about it, that it was my place to do anything about it, that I could do anything different, all those kinds of things that I think probably lots of people can relate to. And because it sort of forced me to slow down our consumption, it just sort of brought all these issues up front and center. It was, it was quite a naive challenge. Oh, this will be fun. And then I was like, oh crap, I've opened this massive can of worms and now I wish I kind of hadn't. But yeah, and so fast forward, where are we? 8-9 years. And I wrote my first book last year. Well, I wrote it the year before. It came out last year, January last year, the Sustainableish Living Guide. And book number 2 came out in March this year, which is the Sustainableish Guide to Green Parenting. So that's been very exciting and very different to anything I've done before. So that was really lovely.
But I absolutely love, the Sustainableish as a word, and I hope everyone listening has the same feelings about it as I do. It just makes you realize that it's we have so many high standards pushed on us, and it can give you a lot of anxiety, can't it? So I think Sustainableish is a really good sort of word to be targeting towards. We're all trying to do our best. It's bringing people with you. So your books are great, because there's a lot of people out there who are thinking, how can I live more sustainably? And that's giving them guidance without judgment, without preaching, and hopefully without anxiety. So I think it's pretty amazing that you've already got 2 books out there over the last year as well.
I wrote the second one literally. My contract came out the door like as we went into lockdown, and then it had to be in June or something. So it was like literally those 3 months of the full-on lockdown with the kids home and stuff. So that was interesting.
Where can people get them?
Anywhere you can buy books. So I try and avoid Amazon as much as possible, but if you're looking online, there's great websites like Hive and bookshop.org, I think it is. Support your local independent bookshop. If they haven't got it, they'll be able to order it in for you.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. But it's not just the writing's relatively recent, isn't it? I'm going to big you up because you don't big yourself up, but you've been on TV. You were recently starring with Bake Off winner Nadia on a show, weren't you? And
that was actually a few years ago, but I think they repeated it on something like Saturday Kitchen or something recently. But that was totally random. That was just an email, because I must have done a blog post somewhere about making fudge for presents, and just this email of like, oh, we're looking for someone who makes fudge but doesn't do it, as a
commercial
to sell. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. So Nadia came round our house. It was
did she?
She came to our house. My mother-in-law had an absolute fit about like cleaning our kitchen before she came, and it was really good fun.
Brilliant. And you've got another exciting thing coming up, I believe, with the Guardian Masterclass. Tell us about that one.
So that was another really exciting email just dropped into my inbox. I can't even remember. I think it said something like Guardian Masterclass speaker invitation, and and you know, would you be interested in and I literally replied, is it completely unprofessional to say, oh my god, yes, in capitals? So yeah, so that's really exciting. So that's coming up. That's going to be August the 2nd. So I need to get my bum in gear and send them all through the stuff for all the blurb and stuff, and then presumably they'll get it like online, if you know, up on their website and stuff, if people want to come along.
Well, I think it shows that you've touched a nerve, really. It shows that what you're talking about is something that people really want to hear about. And I think, I mean, I resonate with that a lot. It's me resonating, because my husband calls me preachy.
Right.
You imagine that, you know, but people in all seriousness don't want to be preached to, or to hear from smug people that you know are basically banging on about, oh, well, I make all my own bread and I make all my own clothes, and you know, and you know, we might do that, but we have to keep that secret. But I think it's much more about ordinary people, and it's a horrible word, ordinary, but people going about their daily, extremely busy lives, working, commuting, trying to make ends meet, bringing up families or not, you know, coping with lockdown as well, but how we can change their thinking to make them feel happy about sustainability. That's the challenge, isn't
I mean,
it?
I had when the new book came out, the parenting book in March, I did a couple of sort of more mainstream sort of parenting podcasts, and the question, you know, that they both posed sort of straight out the bat was like, are we really expecting parents to take this on as well now? You know, we were just this was the coming towards the end of the second lockdown, you know, with the kids at home, and you know, parents are on their knees, and are we really going to pile this additional pressure onto them? And it's really difficult because no, of course I don't want to, or you know, we as a you know, I don't want to say as a movement, that sounds really naff, but do you know, of course we don't want to pile extra pressure on people, of course we don't want to give people extra things to do, but something's got to change, otherwise you know, it's going to be even harder in 10 years time. And do we really want our kids turning around to us and saying, what the hell, like, did you knew this was coming, you saw this coming, and you just carried on?
Ignored it. Yeah.
So it's really difficult, you know. I don't want to be that person. I'm very aware of you know, people avoiding me in the playground or whatever because of being made to feel guilty, but it is a conversation that we need to have, and it is going to make people uncomfortable, but maybe we just need to say, yeah, this is going to be a bit hard, this is going to be a bit uncomfortable, but change is and it doesn't have to be maybe as hard as we think it's going to be. Sometimes it's just you know, once you've made those changes, they become your sort of new normal, and you're like, oh, actually that was much easier than I thought it was going to be. And they don't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to go from, you know, where you are now to being a complete, you know, in Boris's words, tree hugging, mung bean eating, you know, hugging, you know, nobody's expecting that. No. Can you check what your council can recycle and just make sure you're doing that, you know? And it's about I was chatting to somebody for my podcast just before we came on this call, and you know, they talked about sort of couch to 5k, or you know, couch to marathon. It's that, isn't it? If somebody said to you, you're going to run a marathon tomorrow, you'd go, no, I'm not. But if they said to you, okay, right, come on, here's the app, here's the, you know, here's what we need to do, I'm going to hold your hand, we're going to do this really simple, we're going to have a look in the cupboard and see if you've got your trainers, do you know, like that's all we're going to do.
Small steps. Definitely. I mean, we talk about that a lot in fashion revolution work as well. So everybody's going to be in a different place in the journey, aren't they? So it's finding where people are in that journey and just helping them to get to the next step. I think and also, you know,
helping them to not be put off by the people who are further on in that journey, because that can feel really daunting as well. And I do think there is an element in some online communities maybe for a bit of kind of bashing, you know, like if people are just tentatively dipping their toes in, and then this, you know, it's really scary if you're in a Facebook group and you sort of pluck up the courage to post the first time, and sometimes there is a bit of a like, oh god, why are you doing that, and you shouldn't be doing that, and of course you should actually be doing this, and it's, oh, I was just trying. No, it's really and so true. I think we need to be really aware of that as a again, as a kind of movement
as
or
a
a
group.
community or whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of people, they want to make change, and as you say, they find it a little bit scary, and it's never as hard. It's like I always think back to culture change generally for things like wearing a seatbelt, or giving up smoking, or something deeper like being gay or something. You know,
Yeah.
the culture has shifted, and in some cases shifted quite quickly. But until you look back, you don't realize how far it shifted, do you? In the public's perception, the minds, and it almost stands out when somebody is further in history, has views that we would consider to be slightly more historical. They stand out more because we don't realize how much we've shifted. But how to make that shift is kind of the difficult thing, isn't it? So why do you think that individual behavior change around sustainability does need to change? I mean, we do hear a lot about the government should do things, the laws need to change. So why is it important that individuals change?
Because we're all individuals. So Boris Johnson is an individual. Do you know, the head of Shell is an individual. Can you imagine if they took personal responsibility and said, you know what, this is massive. This is the biggest challenge facing humanity. I've got kids, you know, I am going to do absolutely everything within my power. But also, you know, yes, we need government to change. Yes, we need businesses to change, and we need individuals to change. And there's this, you know, it's almost like a Venn diagram, isn't it? We need everybody doing their bit. But there's this idea that actually, as individuals, we can also be change agents within any organizations we're a part of. So, you know, if we're an employee in a business, or if we're running a business, or if we're on the PTA at school, or if we're, I don't know, running the local football club or something, you know, we have the potential to drive change, or also just to be the person asking the question. So where is our pension? But I also think it's, I mean, George Monbiot says something about, oh, you know, we need to stop tinkering around the edges with all this sort of micro consumerism and banning of plastic straws, and we need to, you know, bring down capitalism. And I'm like, that's awesome, but I know how to get a reusable straw, and I don't know how to bring down capitalism, and I've got to be back for the school run. And do you know, whereas if we can get everyone started with some nice, easy, low-hanging fruit changes that they can feel ownership of as individuals, then a proportion of those people are going to go on and ask some questions in their workplace, or, you know, send an email to the local council, or bring down capitalism. I don't know, but everyone's got to start somewhere. And I think unless we can empower people on an individual level, it becomes very difficult for them to have any effect in other areas as well.
I think that's really important. I mean, I remember in the days when we were allowed to bring our own cups to coffee shops and things, you could see people queuing up with their own cup, and that did inspire the other people in the queue. You know,
it's this idea of ripples, isn't it? This idea that I've got this great graphic, and I can share it with you. That was shared with me by somebody, and this idea that, you know, we've got these almost 4 spheres of influence. So the changes we make as individuals, the choices that we're making at the checkout, all those kinds of things, the power that we have as citizens, so our vote, our voice with our MPs and our elected representatives, our power as influencers. So exactly that, standing there in the coffee shop, you know, the first person to do that was probably crapping themselves. Oh God, everyone's looking at me. And do you remember the first time you took yours? I was like, oh, everyone's looking at me. I'm that person. The barista's going to hate me. The barista's going to say you can't do it. Like, you know, it's, and then all of a sudden it becomes normal, and our behavior influences, you know, the other people we live with. It influences our friends, our family. We might not know it, and we might think we're annoying them or something, but just by showing up and making the changes that we're making, it definitely influences other people. And then that 4th layer is that change agent one, you know, that sort of using the power that we have within organizations to encourage them to change. So like we are very, it's very easy to forget or to feel powerless and hopeless. And actually, we've got a huge amount of power as, you know, air quotes, just one person.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, everything that you said. I mean, I think we are so often made to feel, and I do think it is a deliberate thing, that we don't have any power politically, personally, or whatever. But that person asking that question, that person showing what they think, it's brave. It's really brave.
It's really
but
brave.
yeah, but the first time you do it, like you say, it's nerve-wracking, and then you can become a bit more feisty, and it's probably like giving up smoking, isn't it? You become one of those people who's completely
vehemently anti.
yeah. But it's really true. It's really interesting, and I think there is some it's personal growth that comes out of that as well, because you're doing what you believe in, and there's nothing that makes you happier, in my view, than being true to your own values. And when I'm talking with customers, customer organizations, I always say it's about defining what your values are, and then once you know what your values are, you can act according to them. And especially working with businesses, and as an employee, we have a power as an employee to help put the values into businesses, because they will align with customer values.
And that works on an individual level as well. We did a whole, I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it? One of the conversations that comes up a lot is loo roll. Do you know, like which loo roll should I buy? Which is the best one? And Diane in the Knackered Mums Eco Club, she's one of our lovely members, and she just came up with this great thing. And she was like, it depends what your values are. Like, because your value might be UK made, it might be, or, you know, we will all have a sort of values hierarchy, and it might be different for different things. So, you know, you're thinking about where it's made, whether it's plastic free, is it recycled, is it bamboo, is it this? And it's going to be different for everybody. So there probably isn't one that ticks all of those boxes for everybody. But, you know, when we had a whole session, I did a sort of 6-week beginners course last half term, and this idea that, you know, getting clear about what your values are, what things are important to you, and how you can then, this sounds really cheesy, like live those values more of the time. Because I think there is this disconnect. I like to think if we were all asked, do you care about the future of the planet? Hopefully, at least 99% of us would say yes. Okay, so actually, how are the decisions that you're making helping, you know, having a positive impact on that? And that's not to say like every decision you make about bloody loo roll needs to be this like in-depth values, you know, based piece, but just trying to make better decisions more of the time, trying to make more of your decisions in line with the things that you care about. So, you know, I'm sure we were all made really aware of the importance of, you know, independent local shops and supporting them during the pandemic. So, you know, how can we divert a bit of our Amazon spend to local independent shops? It doesn't have to be radically transforming everything, but how can we just have those values more front and center and think about how we can make more of our decisions fit with them?
No, it's true. And also I find because what you said about having every single little decision doesn't have to be like that, because I think that's one of the things that does make people
it's
think,
paralyzing,
oh my
isn't
God.
it?
Yeah, exactly. It's analysis paralysis, as my husband calls it. You kind of you end up making a decision on one thing. The toilet roll is actually something that happened in our house. We changed toilet roll, but then it makes it easier with other things, because you've kind of done some of the groundwork. Your mind's got it's that getting used to the idea of changing things out, and then just the next time you're shopping for something else. But actually, you've moved me on very nicely to my next subject I wanted to go into, which is action versus intention. And that's basically what I'm saying there is, we often think we want to change something, but when it comes down to it, we take an action against that. And there's a really interesting poll that a survey that Google ran at the end of last year, and according to their survey, 55% of people put sustainability as their top shopping priority. So that's pretty good. But unfortunately, the survey of the people and how they actually shopped, that moved down massively to put style at 80-something% and price at 80-something%, and sustainably further down the list. So what that numbers actually show is we go out shopping, or we go and make the choice with sustainability high on the list, but then something distracts us, something's a bit cheaper, something's a bit prettier. I don't know if it's quite the same with toilet roll, but I think that's quite an interesting one. So what's your thoughts on action versus intention, and how we can sort of combat that and help people change?
Yeah, I was having a great conversation with somebody the other day, and I think I even wrote it down, so forgive me for the sounds of paper leafing through. But this idea that, you know, we've got this lizard brain, this very sort of primitive brain, and then we've got our more developed kind of Homo sapien brain. But that the lizard brain, where did I write it down? Oh, it's basically, it's concerned with three things: keeping us safe, seeking pleasure, and the path of least resistance. So it's, you know, when we're faced with a stack of different loo rolls, of course we're gonna like, oh, it's just easier, isn't it, just to carry on with the one we've got. Or you know, thinking about well, especially with clothes, there is that pleasure, you know, like, oh, well, that's pretty, that's cheap, that's not, you know, so it's about, some of it comes down, I think, to sort of, you know, slowing down. That's why the year buying nothing new was so useful, because I was having to stop and look for everything secondhand. And so many, I think, of our consumption decisions, probably especially things like clothes, are very unconscious, aren't they? They're very
spontaneous.
Yeah, and you know, you're out window shopping and you're feeling a bit miserable, or you're out on your lunch hour, whatever. Oh, I deserve that, and it's only 15 quid, or do you know, and we're not thinking, oh, because if somebody says to you, you know, do you want to shop more sustainably? Yes, of course I do. But we're not thinking about sustainability necessarily when we're shopping. We're thinking about the crap day we've had at the office, or the fact that we've got maybe we're going out for a drink for the first time, or do you know, like, you know, all those things. We're not, we haven't joined the dots a lot of the time, have we?
No.
And I think because, as you said, there's that almost very intentional disempowering of us, that you know, your choice at the checkout doesn't make a difference to those people in that factory in Bangladesh. Well, maybe your one choice doesn't, but also you're choosing not to give your money, you know. I think we are more powerful than we think, but we just sometimes maybe need to take a breath and slow down and maybe remind ourselves of those values and things. But that, you know, I'm not perfect. I don't do that every time.
No, but it's interesting though, you raise that, because I was a bit miffed, is that a good word, on the paper over the weekend, the BBC, talking about how these, what was it, buy later, what they call buy now, pay later,
pay in 3 installments,
like
or whatever,
Klarna and all of that.
Yes.
And how that has now been pitched as a woman's empowerment issue. So if you want the clothes or the item now, you can have it now. And why shouldn't you as a woman have that now, if you haven't got any money? Exactly, you deserve it. And I was sort of, I pushed back on it a bit on Twitter, saying, well, yeah, okay, I get where that's coming from, but the point is encouraging people into a crippling debt, which a lot of people are in after lockdown, the right way to be pushing that. And also that is stopping them think about the sustainability of, do I need to buy all of those items? So
and reinforcing this message that a new dress is going to make you happier. A new dress is going to make you a better person, and you know, a new whatever. And that's the society that we live in, is bombarding us with these messages every single day, that, you know, the only route to happiness is consumption,
shopping.
And that's a big one to get your head around, isn't it?
It is, and we are being used. I mean, it was, if anyone's listening to this and they haven't listened to the episode we did a few weeks back with Sian Conway on greenwashing, she explained really clearly how we are being manipulated with these messages, with these feelings. They're going into our primordial needs to tell us that you need to have that thing. And unfortunately, psychologically, it's not doing us any good, because you get that dress or that new, I don't know, bit of tech or something, and you think it's going to make you happy, and maybe for a really short time it does. Sometimes it never even does. But you're going to get dissatisfied by it again, and it's not going to solve any of the core issues in your life that are maybe not making you as happy as you
just a bit poorer than you were. Yeah,
exactly, or even poorer. You can't eat. So it's an interesting one, but it's how do you deal with this needing to change without people getting anxious, because we've all had a pretty anxious time the last few years. We need people to be embracing this as a positive. And one thing I think about with lockdown was the lovely feelings that people were expressing of enjoying nature, enjoying walking, enjoying exercise. And it's, rather than moving us along and saying, right, lockdown's over, we're all getting better, we don't have to do that stuff anymore, we don't have to support nature anymore, you know, we're back to the way we were, you know, commuting and all of these things. It's how do you get people to go, no, hang on a minute, I like those parts of lockdown. I didn't like all of it, I like those parts, and I like the sustainability side of it, if you want to call it that. How do I keep those parts of it, you know?
I think, you know, definitely that first lockdown in March last year, the world, or it felt very much to me like the world just stopped.
Yeah.
The roads were empty, the shops, you know, because nobody knew how to navigate their way around this, so everything just stopped, and we were forced to slow down. And I guess now it's oh God, I'm aware I sound a real idiot saying this. Where you can, trying to intentionally choose what you add back in. So, you know, a really common complaint, isn't it, when you've got kids, is that you spend your life running around after them and ferrying them to and from all these different clubs. Now we haven't had that because that hasn't. So maybe we can sit down with the kids and go, what are the 2 clubs that you really want to do each week? You know, because it got a bit mad, and actually I was really stressed about it, and I didn't realize how difficult it was until it went away, and then I was like, oh God. So and trying to push back and maybe a little bit on the, you know, more is better. So more activities, more things, more stuff is always better. And actually, can we just pull back a little bit? Or I don't know, I'm not explaining that very well, but I think,
no, I understand. It's the conscious thinking. And going back to kids clubs, by the way, my mum says to me, you didn't go to all of these clubs. It's
no.
quite a recent phenomenon. When my 2 were at primary school, it seemed to be that you'd pick them up from school and then suddenly there was a frantic,
Yes,
get them
yeah.
one to swimming, one to piano lesson,
Yeah,
one
yeah,
to
yeah,
so,
yeah.
oh my God. The comfort is it does stop a bit when they go to secondary school because they're all at school, so that's good. But yeah, no, it's like, again, that has been a culture change coming into our kids' generation of all these clubs, and we certainly didn't have it.
And these messages that if we're not doing that for our kids, we're somehow failing them. Do you know?
Yes.
It's
I used to always be feeling inadequate because I wasn't having someone around for tea every night.
yes,
Oh, we've got so and so coming for tea, and we've got so and so
yeah,
coming. Okay, but invite some people if I want to or not. But
yeah.
it is. We can all. I suppose the sign there is we can all be pressured by peer pressured. So we need to be peer pressuring people in a good way, not in an anxious way, but to do less. So you don't need to do that. Spend some
And I
time with the
think,
kids.
you know, you were talking at a minute ago. You know, how do we encourage, empower, facilitate people making some small changes without feeling anxious? And you know, this whole thing of our lizard brain wants us to stay safe, so that's doing what we know and all that sort of thing. But actually, by us doing those things, and sometimes there's this idea that you have to be that sort of person, you have to be the tree hugger, the bunny hugger, the mung bean eater to do those things. Whereas, you know, I hope I can sort of show up and with my recyclable, you know, with my reusable cup, and someone go, oh, Jen's remembers her reusable cup, and she's, you know, her kids are in my class and they're all quite normal. Do you know, like that there's not this sort of, so we're kind of almost giving other people permission to have a go at these things and to do things. And I think the more we can think about and talk about the things that we don't do, the way we're doing this imperfectly, the compromises that we're making, you know, we still have crisps in our house.
Yeah, we do.
You know, we've got 2 cars, I've got a dog, we're not vegan. Do you know, all so nobody's expecting perfection off you, just little changes. And the littler we can make it, and the more, you know, you can hook up with a friend or find somebody in your circle who's doing similar things, that sort of you know, collective action. You know, in the my membership, the Knackered Mums Eco Club, it's just so empowering seeing that it's not just one of us, because it's very lonely sometimes being the person making these changes, and especially if none of your family or friends are into it, and then realizing that, gosh, there's like 160 of us doing that, and look, collectively we've done X, Y, and Z, and oh gosh, they're doing that, that's a really good idea. And just this idea of coming together around this without being those people. I don't know.
No, it's really interesting. And it's interesting what you say as well. It just made me think that certainly on Twitter, which I know can be an evil beast, if you say, I'm doing this, but I'm not vegan, I'm not, you know, we have 2 cars or whatever, thing like that, there's always this charge of hypocrisy. And that's an excuse, I think, that unfortunately, I don't know what the kind of people, afraid people, I would like to call them, people who are afraid of the change.
Yeah.
They will use that and they'll say, well, Greta Thunberg may have sailed across to America, but actually her team had to go by plane, so therefore she's a hypocrite. And think, really. And we I'm sure people talk about us in the same way, that Jo's always banging on about ethical clothing, but look, there she is in her I don't know, denim top or shirt that took this much water, and I can bore them about that if they like, but the main thing is, it's not an excuse if somebody else isn't doing something to the utmost of the possibility. It's about those little steps, isn't it? And being kind to ourselves and being kind to other people, because sometimes things seem much harder than to one person they do to others, because it's the level at which you can make change, but also where you are in your life and how busy you are and how much
that's one of the things I talk about, with respect to Sustainableish so much, is that, we're all starting from different places. We've all got different challenges and circumstances that maybe other people know nothing about, and that my easy might be your really hard, or vice versa. But that's okay. Like, it's, it's all right. Just start from where you are, do what you can, when you can. All those little bits, as insignificant as they feel, they really, again, it's another cliche, but they really do add up. And just because you can't do it all doesn't mean you can't do anything. So pick your thing, pick your one. If your thing is fashion, amazing, start with fashion. If your thing is plastic, start with plastic. If your thing is food, start with food. But don't feel like you've got to do it all and you've got to do it perfectly, because then you'll just go and hide under the duvet and eat ice cream.
And I think that's true what you say about doing it perfectly, that people will make mistakes, people will slip, that's normal as well. It's not that you've failed in the whole mission if you make one.
It's like a diet, isn't it?
It's not exactly. If you happen to eat chocolate one day, then it was probably delicious, so there you are. You probably needed it, so there you go.
Maya Angelou, I think, has that quote about, you did what you, I can't remember, but you did what you knew, or at that point you was the best thing available, and now you know better, you do better. So sometimes you make a change and then you're like, oh god, I actually I've not made, maybe that change wasn't as good as I thought it was, but that's fine, don't worry about it. Like, let's go on and see what's next, or what else we can do.
Exactly. I mean, we're going to be, it's always going to be a journey, isn't it? It's always going to be a journey.
And sometimes it's 2 steps forwards and 1 back, and again, that's all right.
Yeah, exactly. It isn't a wrong thing. I mean, it's an interesting one. You realize how far you are along in the journey as well. So I was on the radio the other day, because you might have seen on, I think it was Friday, a RSA report came out saying that over 50% of new clothing from fast fashion brands is made of virgin plastic, and this seemed to be quite a shocking thing. That the reactions I was getting was, it was quite shocking that people didn't realize they had virgin plastic in their clothes. And I was invited onto the radio with a local stylist, and the interviewer actually said to me, "Isn't this shocking?" I was like, no, not really, but I can see why it is for people, why these things are shocking, and it's a wake-up call, isn't it? You sort of think, oh, but people didn't know these things, but now they do know these things. It will be really interesting to see what happens.
But then I guess it's with something like that, I struggle with this around plastics, around clothes, and it's in all of them. So where do I go? And then I think I'm doing the right thing by getting cotton, but then somebody's told me that cotton is sucking all the water up, and so then there's this, you feel like you can't do right for doing wrong, so you retreat back and stick with what you know, don't you?
I think that's actually a really interesting point about complexity. I think it's made unnecessarily complex to keep us thinking. I'm not blaming a big them somewhere. It's like it's too many different bits of messaging coming from so many different places that you can't clarify in your own mind. I suppose it's back to the values thing again, isn't it? Choose the values that are important to you. And there are going to be people talk about secondhand. This stylist that was on the radio show with me, she was very much pushing secondhand clothing because it's already out there. And then if you're somebody who's a plastic free person, you would be saying, well, no, because there's microfibers going out. So there's all of these different issues, but it's picking the ones. I mean, the key thing will always be buy less. Just don't buy so much, and that's going to help a huge amount.
And I'm super aware when I say that is an unaspirational, unexciting, very dull, very grown up thing to say to, I mean, who wants to be told that? Like, when it's so counter to all the messages we're getting, your life will be better, happier, richer, whatever, with more stuff. And you know, you can understand people going, oh, do you know what, bugger off, like, especially at the moment when we've had a really rough 18 months and it's like, I just want to go out and buy a new outfit, or I just want to go out and, you know, the kids have had a really difficult time, here's some toys, do you know, like, and it's like, I don't know, it's something in our psyche, and it's something, you know, I'm really aware that you know, you feel very bar humbug, you feel very party pooper,
exactly.
you know,
Judgy.
being the one saying, you know, I put something on Instagram, I think, about these balloon arches and stuff, like, oh gosh, can we maybe not do those because they're not really that great and balloons are plastic and more. But you feel like the party pooper in the well, it's just for their birthday,
Only
do you know,
once.
like,
But I did notice that the Euro football thing, they had a virtual balloon let off.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, which I thought was quite cute. So doing it with, I think I just did it with animation.
Oh, okay.
So that was quite good. But obviously everyone can't do that. But it'll be interesting to see if the culture does change about things like that. Yeah, no, it's really tough. I mean, I know when I haven't done it for a while, but when I walked down to the town, just wandering through the town, I did meet some friends one time with their teenagers, and they literally saw me and they were loaded up with Primark bags, and they all automatically put their hands behind their back. And I thought, oh God, I don't want to be the person that everyone's scared of meeting in the high street, you know.
Yeah. But I think also that complexity thing, it comes back to compromised, you know, like, we are going to, so we might have these lovely set of values and this values hierarchy, and in all honesty, we're probably not going to be able to tick those, you know, all of the time, some of the time, whatever. So about, you know, deciding maybe what your sort of red lines are, and deciding what are the things you're prepared, especially if you're trying to bring kids along for the ride and husbands along for the ride and all that sort of thing. There's gonna have to be some compromise, and you kind of got to get okay with that, the sort of shades of green in between, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. It's going back to toilet roll, actually, is an interesting one, because Lucy, who works with me, she's just switched over to bamboo toilet paper. She won't mind me giving this secret out on the podcast. But I had a job however many years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, to switch my husband over to ethical toilet paper, because he was very much in the, it's got to work and it's got to be comfortable, and I don't want to have a scratchy botty and all that kind of thing. So we switched over to who gives a crap. And then she said to me the other day, oh, we've just got this, or the other week, we've just got this bamboo toilet paper, do you want to go along with that? I thought, no, do you know what, the journey of getting the switch has happened. It's going to happen again. But she did tell me it's not as good, the bamboo, anyway, so I feel a bit better. So too much toilet discussion there, but it's a key part of all of our lives, isn't it?
The loo roll is a big thing. I mean, we found that out during the first lockdown, didn't we? Loo roll is a big thing.
Yeah, everyone goes and piles it up in their house, don't they? But anyway, moving on away from toilet paper, it's probably,
I'm sure we'll come back to it.
I'm sure we will, actually. It's quite a handy one. Actually, when I was at university, what we did was we measured spend in terms of, oh, that thing costs that many toilet rolls, that thing costs that many toilet rolls, because it was something we had to buy. Anyway, so the next question I was going to ask you was, what other things need to change? So not just our behaviour, but what other things do you think need to change in the world to help us get where we want to go in the bigger picture? So it's not just down to the individual, but what other things?
Oh God, I mean, so much, isn't there? Clearly, we need massive policy shifts. We need a massive, you know, we're recording this, aren't we, on the Monday after the G7 conference, and I don't know how you interpreted it. I felt very much like it was yet more talk and very little in terms of actual deliverables and action and all that kind of thing. So, you know, that needs to change. We need businesses, you know, talking about greenwashing. We need some way of making it easy for people. Otherwise, you know, we're asking people to change, but it's so complex and complicated and really hard to feel like you're doing the right thing. So of course people aren't going to do it. But, you know, we've also talked on this whole idea of, like, as a society, the messages we hear are buy, more. You know, how do we change that? There's so much that needs to change, that it's very easy to then retreat back into that feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness. And so I think, you know, remembering that idea that our choices matter, our voices matter, that being seen to make these changes matters, asking these questions is really important, and trying to think about how we can just Georgina at Pebble magazine talks about this really nicely, this idea of everyday activism.
Yes,
this idea that, you know, the things that we're doing, the little changes that we're making really do matter. And you know, I was asked to give a TEDx talk during our year Buying Nothing New, and the theme was everyday radicals, and I was like, God, I'm not radical, I'm a good girl. You know, but actually not buying is a really radical act. And you know, that the idea that all these little things we're doing are just gently sort of shaking the status quo. And again, you know, another cheesy cliche about the sort of pebbles on the beach, or the drops in the ocean and things, and them all adding up. But I don't know if you feel this, I do feel like there is a groundswell. I do feel like now there is some momentum, and that there is you know, change is coming, too slowly, but it's coming. And that, you know, we've been a part of that, and we can be a part of that. Because when you look at, you know, people will argue all day long about the, you know, the impact of banning plastic straws, but that's happened, and that was a government policy change, that was changes that businesses have made, all as a result of grassroots pressure and campaigning, and people saying, this is ridiculous, why are we doing this? You know, so it does show that change can happen bottom up.
Yes.
So I think we need to hold on to that.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think the change happening from the bottom up, I think businesses will be influenced very much by what their customers are looking for. And we've seen
they
that
follow
in
the money.
The money, exactly. So greenwashing, for example, they've realized that the ethical market is growing.
Yes.
People are trying to, they see whatever they actually do when it comes to action versus intention or whatever, but their intention is to look at sustainability, and so they've changed their marketing messages to match that. So we know that happens, and we also know that smaller brands that are doing ethical things are raising the awareness of customers, who then go back to the bigger brands, who then
say, well, if they can do it, why can't you?
Exactly right. So that's all happening as well, and we kind of need that to happen with government a bit as well, which I think it is to a certain extent, but we've still got quite a situation to overcome there, in terms of they would rather it was the businesses leading it, I think, because they don't want to be seen as I don't know, being restrictive, I suppose, on people's living.
But I think, you know, with that, remember this idea that, you know, regardless of, like, where I'm in a, you know, staunchly conservative area, it feels very much a wasted vote to vote anything because of proportional representation and things. But you know, I can still write to him and say, what are you doing about this? And I always feel like it's a very stock answer and a pat on the head and a go away now. But, you know, I can tweet him. I can, you know, ask what his vote, you know, call out his voting records on various things. And, you know, but also on a county council level, on a local council level, there are lots of we sort of maybe think that there's not much power at those levels, but they're involved with like local plans and you know, housing and infrastructure and transport and all that sort of thing. So, you know, send them a letter, let them know that this is something that's important to you, drop them an email, because unless people know that this is what constituents and citizens want, of course they're not going to, you know, they're going to carry on with the easiest path of least resistance as well.
It's really interesting that you say that. Just maybe I've got this letter here that you probably can't see, but it's from Boris Johnson, because I wrote back in November, I think, to my local MP, who is one of the new Tory lot that came in the last election, and I wasn't expecting anything of it. I only did it because I promised somebody that I would, which was about female representation on the COP26 thing. So no response. He just went, I'll forward it on to the relevant people, and the letter is a bit of a pat on the head. And I thought, well, actually that reached the Prime Minister's office. That reached eventually. I mean, it took a long time, but it got there. So I suppose it's not being disheartened, expecting immediate action, but by putting your voice out there and sending off that email or whatever, it can actually.
And also, if your letter was one of 10 or one of 100, then they're like, oh. And this is the same with using your voice with retailers and things as well. You know, you sort of think, oh, what's the point in me tweeting them about my shopping bags again? But if suddenly they're getting 200 of these tweets a day, it's like with do you remember there was that thing with the Walker's crisp packets, wasn't there? And people were like posting them back, and then suddenly there's look, there's a TerraCycle screen for Walker's crisp. You know, then suddenly they're like, oh God, you know, like, yeah, we're going to have to do something about this, because it's very easy to think, my one letter, my one tweet, my whatever. But actually, I think that, I don't know if there is a threshold number that they look at, but often,
Probably.
you know, once they start to get above a certain number, they probably are like, oh God,
They're
have to
banging
do
on.
something about this.
I suppose they've got people who they're picking up the trends, haven't they?
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I remember pre-lockdown, there was a lot of really interesting actions happening, like people unpacking their shopping at the till and leaving it all there. I mean, lockdown has been awful for plastic packaged things, but but then again, there's a groundswell of new shops coming along. We've got several now coming in our area of packaging free. That's all come along. So maybe that's a bit of a pushback, and people will see that and think about it. So,
and once you've made you know, supermarket shopping, I think, is one of the most difficult things to do, and to the areas to reduce plastic in, because it's so blooming hard. But if you make it easy for people, so that in every town there is a shop that is packaging free, affordable, accessible, you know, then there are a lot of people who are going to choose that because it's suddenly convenient and easy for them, you know, and they will have this intention, but actually the action is really difficult because their only option at the moment is the supermarkets. But, you know, if we can help them to turn their intention into action by making it a damn sight easier, then of course more people are going to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's really key, actually, because I mean, I think people think we buy everything at the supermarket, and certainly over the last 10 years or so, they've made it easier by doing clothing and homewares and everything. So you can go in there and literally buy anything you want. And to go back from that and think, well, actually, I'm going to buy my fruit and vegetable from a box scheme. I'm going to buy that seems to people to be hard, but actually it isn't really that hard, because you're not spending a huge amount of more time once you've set these things up. So again, it's just that behavior change.
Habit.
Exactly. And it is very satisfying, isn't it? I mean, I know so many people that have switched over to vegetable box schemes, for example, in lockdown, and getting your milk delivered by the milkman. You know, making the decision to make the change is one thing, but actually it's so much better in the long run, because the milk just turns up on your step every morning and you don't do anything.
And, you know, I think we frame a lot of these changes in quite a negative, like we're losing convenience, or we're losing this, or we're losing that. Well, actually, you know, you just said that the feeling of empowerment and, dare I say, smugness that you get from having, you know, made a decision that aligns with these values that you've decided are really important, realized it wasn't that hard, you know, consciously choosing who you want to give your hard-earned money to in the areas that you know, we don't all have that luxury, and a lot of our decisions are dictated by price. And again, that's okay, that's not your fault. It's about you know, where we have got a bit more freedom of choice, if there are areas where we can do that, then let's try and make one different decision this month, and, you know, sit with that for a bit, and then have a think about what we can do next. But there is something very empowering and very, you know, sometimes it is more convenient. I mean, I love getting we get a Riverford veg box. It's organic, it's local. If it's not in season, it's not in there. It's not air freighted. I don't have to spend my time in the supermarket seeking out all the different things.
Yeah,
it's there, and if it's not in season, it's not going to come. So I don't need to worry about that. And, you know, it's delivered to my doorstep. I put it away. Like, I love it. It's a real, you know. But I have that sort of luxury in terms of price.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I think if you're having to watch every single penny, and you're the kind of person who needs to go into the supermarket and compare offers and things like that, then that's a task unto itself, isn't it? And I admire people who are able to budget in that kind of way. I really, really do. But but for people who can afford that little bit of what would you call it? Spending slightly more just to feel comfortable about your values, and I suppose it is a luxury. Definitely is a luxury.
It is a real luxury.
But you can choose to go to the milkman. We've been lucky. We have a few new organisations cropping up here, as I think they are around the country. So we have a lady called Mel who delivers all your sort of dry goods, plastic-free packaging. That's called Cupboard Love Suffolk, which is great. So we use her a lot. And then we use Able and Cole actually for our box, which is great. And then the toilet paper goes. So basically our supermarket shopping bill has really reduced drastically, because we're knocking the edges off it, I suppose. Of different things. And there's so many more businesses cropping up. I mean, Where Does It Come From is on an accelerator at the moment with NatWest, and there's a climate accelerator, and there's so many businesses getting support to start up plastic-free shops, delivery schemes. You know, I think we're going to see an awful lot more of those kind of businesses cropping up, and they're getting funding. You know, there is a bit of a groundswell, as you were saying.
I mean, when I interviewed for my podcast the guys at it's called Earth Food Love in Totnes, and at the time it was the only zero waste shop in the country.
Wow.
And that was 2017, 2018, and you look now and there are hundreds. You know, that's happened so quickly, and it's just phenomenal. It shows you this sort of speed of change.
No, it's great, and they're all different as well. So the lady just started, she crowdfunded, I think just before or maybe at the beginning of lockdown, and she's starting up something. So any local people with Lucy's Unwrapped, that's going to be opening very shortly in Ipswich, and she crowdfunded for that and got that going. So there's an awful lot of different things. And I was talking to a lady, I think 2 people in the last week I've been talking to, that had told me that they have set up their plastic-free shop and they want to franchise it around the country. So I'm like, all you guys should get together and talk to each other. I'm telling them about each other, because that's how they could do it. They could almost have a higher level franchise, which would make it so much easier for other people to do, wouldn't it? So there's lots. So actually that brings me on to my last question, because I'm aware that you and I are both passionate about this subject, and it could really last a long time otherwise. I said we both worked in this area for a long time now. I think you're but what year was your year of buying?
2012. It's August 2012. September 2012 we started, And
I started Where Does It Come From? We launched as a business in 2013, but we worked stuff. So we've been working in this area for quite a long time. But I don't know about you, but for me, it feels like this last maybe 2 years, suddenly it's mainstream. Suddenly we're trendy, you know, rather than being the lepers before. But now we're the trendy ones. So why do you think? What's happened to make the media take notice, to make brands change, to make customers take notice, governments even starting to take notice? What are these things? Is it climate emergency? What is it?
I think Blue Planet 2 was huge. I think, you know, that awareness around plastic pollution, the state of the oceans, the impact that, you know, our plastic was having on wildlife and things. And that felt like that was a real catalyst for change, whether it gave people permission to talk about these things. You know, people, I think, were genuinely seeing these things for the first time. So I think that was huge. I think Greta's been absolutely, you know, instrumental in sort of raising the profile, and, you know, for all the negative media attention she gets, it's all media attention, and it's all highlighting the issue. The school, you know, and then she sparked this whole school climate strike movement and things like that. You know, those 3 things I think have been huge. And if there was a study apparently in 2017 with MPs asking them why they weren't taking more action on climate, and they said because they weren't hearing it was an issue from their constituents. Now I'm pretty damn sure that that's changed. You know, obviously we've had the pandemic and things, and that's a distraction. That sounds awful, doesn't it? You know, that's feels like it's kind of, we were on this wave of momentum, and that's kind of had to wait a little bit. But I mean, that's, you know, everybody now, I don't know, I live in a bubble. I live in a, you know,
it's hard to know if you're in a bubble
social media bubble, but I think people are, the awareness is huge now, which it, you know, for a long time it felt very niche, very not really people were talking about it. And I still don't think it's necessarily got to the, you know, I wouldn't necessarily bounce into the playground and have a conversation with the mums in the playground about it, you know, even when we are allowed to go and gather in the playground. But you know, I think people are having more of these conversations. Lots of people are. I mean, it's incredibly courageous to have these conversations. It's so, I still find it really, really difficult to try and definitely to instigate a conversation, but even to sort of, you know, like you said, your friend hiding the bags behind their back, like, what do you say to that? How do you, you know, I was sat watching a cricket match that my little one was playing in, and, you know, and they're talking about getting hot tubs installed and doing this, that and the other, and I don't know what to say. I don't want to but, you know, every time we say, I don't know, it can, you know, someone says, oh, I like your coffee cup, or I mean, I used to have this pair of jeans that were really visibly mended. No, I love your jeans. You know, like you can
yes, that's a good
gently
way of
take
doing
those
it.
conversations and kind of, or, you know, share. Social media is brilliant because people don't want it, they can just scroll past it. But, you know, if you've moved energy supply to a renewable energy thing and they've given you a code, well, share that. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. We got this code. It's so much easier. And now I feel really so much less guilty about the energy that we're using, or whatever that is, you know, to just sort of try and find ways to just gently, very non-judgmental, very non-preachy, but, you know, it's difficult, and it's an act of sort of courage to even just sometimes to share stuff on social media, because you just feel like you're going to hack people off.
It's interesting what you say about bubbles, because I think that's one thing I'm very conscious of, and maybe we do bubble a lot more now. The word bubble even changed meaning a bit, didn't it? But the social media bubble, the friend bubble, all of that kind of thing. So you think it happens politically as well, doesn't it? You think things are going in a particular direction, but it's only really because your group of people you've automatically surrounded
Brexit
yourself with.
and Trump getting voted off. Like, those things are never going to happen. Oh
my goodness,
did.
yeah. So I always get a bit of a shock when something, it's probably a good wake-up call. So for example, my son's school sent out something a few days ago saying that they were going to change out the sports kit, and they had a good reason for changing it out. It was something to do with the suppliers. But so I sent the headmaster an email and just said, could you consider environmental things in the design of this new sports kit? So I was thinking, could they look at materials or whatever? And I just got this message back sort of fairly quickly saying, no, we're too late. We're too far along in the project, but thank you for your interest, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, immediately there was this, okay, they're not even going to consider the environment, which for me, I just find that really odd, because my bubble would automatically, the environment, sustainability would be a thing in any kind of decision like that, but all my customer base would be. So it is good to get that wake up call, like you say, even though sometimes the results can be a bit horrifying, but it's something we all need to consider. And I think that's part of being a human being with interpersonal skills, isn't it? So when you speak to a group, it's almost trying to assess where they are and how welcome they would be. To whether you're going to alienate people, because it's actually one of the worst things is alienating people. Turns them off the whole thing. So you can't make it inaccessible or yourself smug bitch, can you? You've got to you've got to kind of get there. Anyway, I'm conscious of the time, because this is exciting as it is for us. Some people might be dozing off when they're on their daily walk listening to this, but are there any other areas that you think we haven't considered regarding changing people's perception, changing people's culture? You do amazing things.
And I think it is just this, you know, baby steps, chunk it down, and, you know, pick an area, break it down into the smallest thing, you know, have a think about what your values are. Don't expect perfection. You know, it is just about this imperfect action, and imperfect action is going to be no action every single time. So let's embrace that, I think.
That's really true. And actually that's a very, going back to Couch to 5K, I remember being told you might be doing a short run, but you're doing a lot longer of a run than the person lying on their sofa.
Yes. So
that's a good one. Anyway, thank you so much, Jen Gale, for joining us on the Where Does It Come From podcast, and I really appreciate your time. And if anyone wants to find out more about you and get in touch with you, what can they do?
So the website is sustainableish.co.uk, and I'm at Sustainableish on most all of the social media channels, I think, so come and find me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jen. And we'll all look forward to your Guardian Masterclass availability. I guess they can get booked that through the Guardian, can they?
Yeah, I don't think it's up live yet, because I haven't sent them all the info they need, but that'll be up as so keep an eye out for that.
Jen again on that. Anyway, thank you, Jen, for coming.